The arrival. The massive alien fleet hung in the darkness beyond Neptune like deadly metal sharks waiting to strike. 500 warships stretched across space in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the distant light of Sol. Inside the command vessel, Admiral Vexor Xanathi studied the blue-green planet that would soon belong to his empire. Another simple conquest, he muttered, his 4 arms folded behind his back as he gazed at the tactical display. Earth rotated slowly on the screen, looking peaceful and defenseless. The humans will surrender within days. The bridge buzzed with activity as his officers prepared final invasion plans. They had done this 47 times before on 47 different worlds. The pattern never changed: arrive with overwhelming force, demand surrender, crush any resistance, and add another planet to the Zephyrian collective. Dr. Kyle Renvasek approached the Admiral's command platform, carrying a data pad filled with intelligence reports. The chief xenobiologist had spent months studying human behavior through intercepted broadcasts and communications. "Admiral, I have completed my analysis of the target species," Dr. Vasek said, his voice clicking through the translator device. "The humans pose minimal threat to our forces." Xanathi turned his large head toward the scientist. His yellow eyes, evolved for hunting in the dim light of his homeworld, focused on the data pad. "Explain their capabilities." "They are a young species, barely out of their technological infancy," Dr. Vasek began, scrolling through his notes. "Their military forces use primitive chemical projectile weapons. Their largest cities have no orbital defenses. Most importantly, they appear to be a peaceful species focused on commerce and entertainment rather than warfare." The Admiral nodded approvingly. This matched his own observations. Earth's radio signals carried mostly harmless content: music, comedy shows, news about sports and politics. Nothing suggested a warrior culture. "Their physical capabilities?" Xanathi asked. "Limited. They are bipedal, averaging 6 feet in height with only 2 arms. No natural armor or claws. They require artificial clothing to survive in most climates on their own world. By our standards, they are weak and fragile." Commander Talvin, the fleet's second-in-command, joined the conversation. His scarred face bore evidence of battles fought on dozens of worlds. "What about their weapons technology?" Dr. Vasek consulted his data pad again. "Crude chemical explosives, metal projectiles fired by expanding gases, and some basic energy weapons. Nothing that can penetrate our battle armor or ship shields. Their space program is barely capable of reaching their own moon." The 3 officers studied the tactical display showing Earth's orbital installations. A few space stations circled the planet along with communication satellites and some basic defense platforms. Nothing that would slow down the Zephyrian fleet for more than a few minutes. "Deployment recommendations, Admiral?" Xanathi asked. "Standard Category C Invasion Protocol," Dr. Vasek replied confidently. "Overwhelming show of force, demand for immediate surrender, followed by occupation of major population centers. Historical data suggests 73% probability of complete surrender within 48 hours. Commander Talvin pulled up force deployment charts on his personal display. "I recommend we use only 200 ships for the initial assault. Keep the remainder in reserve. These humans do not warrant our full strength." Admiral Xanathi considered this. On most worlds, they deployed their entire fleet to ensure quick victory, but the intelligence reports painted Earth as one of the weakest targets they had ever encountered. The humans seemed more interested in creating entertainment than preparing for war. "Agreed," the Admiral decided. "Signal the fleet commanders. We begin the invasion in 72 hours. Standard protocols apply." As the officers dispersed to prepare their forces, Admiral Xanathi remained on the bridge, watching Earth turn slowly on the display. Something about this conquest felt different, though he could not identify why. Perhaps it was the planet's beauty, or the strange mix of technological advancement and apparent weakness in its inhabitants. Meanwhile, Deep in Earth's solar system, automated monitoring stations detected unusual gravitational readings near the outer planets. The data flowed through space to Orbital Defense Platform Aegis 7, where Commander Jake Morrison reviewed the daily intelligence reports. "What do you make of these readings, Lieutenant?" Morrison asked his sensor officer. Lieutenant Rodriguez studied the data on her screen. "Could be asteroid debris, sir, or maybe solar wind effects. The patterns are irregular." Morrison frowned. His instincts, honed by 20 years of military service, suggested something more significant. The readings showed organized movement patterns, not random cosmic phenomena. But official channels had classified the data as space debris, not worth further investigation. The stage was set. In 72 hours, two civilizations would meet for the first time, and neither had any idea how dramatically their encounter would change the course of galactic history. The assessment. Back on the Zephyrian flagship, communication officers monitored Earth's broadcasts around the clock. They intercepted everything from news programs to children's cartoons, building a comprehensive picture of human society. Most of what they saw confirmed their assessment of humanity as a peaceful, weak species. Dr. Lisa Campbell, Earth's leading expert on potential alien contact, sat in her laboratory reviewing theoretical first contact scenarios. She had no idea that 500 alien warships were preparing to test her theories in the most direct way possible. Her computer models suggested that any sufficiently advanced alien species would likely attempt peaceful contact before considering hostile action. She was wrong. Admiral Zanathi called his final command meeting before the invasion. His senior officers gathered in the war room, studying holographic displays of Earth's major cities and military installations. "Gentlemen," he announced, "we stand on the edge of another glorious victory for the collective. Earth will join our empire as our 48th conquered world. Their primitive weapons and peaceful nature make this one of our easiest campaigns." The assembled commanders nodded in agreement. They had seen the intelligence reports. They had watched the human broadcasts. Nothing suggested this conquest would be different from any other. "Remember," Admiral Zanathi continued, "we are dealing with a species that has never faced interstellar warfare. They will likely panic at the first sight of our ships. Expect mass surrenders and minimal resistance." Commander Talvin activated the tactical display showing Earth's defense installations. "Our biggest challenge will be accepting all the surrender requests without overwhelming our communication systems." Laughter rippled through the assembled officers. Several commented on how easy this campaign would be compared to their previous conquests. Some even wagered on how quickly the humans would surrender. None of them knew that in just a few hours, a wildlife documentary filmmaker named Ben Rodriguez would change everything they thought they knew about the species they were preparing to conquer. As the meeting ended and officers returned to their ships, Admiral Zanathi took one last look at Earth. Soon it would be just another blue dot in the collective's vast empire. Another quick victory to add to his record. The invasion fleet began moving toward Earth, confident in their overwhelming superiority. In 72 hours, they would discover just how wrong they could be about a species they had never truly understood. Communications Officer Zeril rubbed his tired eyes as he monitored the endless stream of Earth broadcasts. For 6 hours straight, he had watched human entertainment programs, trying to understand their culture before the invasion began. Most of what he saw confirmed everything the scientists had told them about human weakness. Cooking shows where humans prepared food in clean, safe kitchens. Romance stories about emotional relationships. News programs discussing politics and economics. Nothing suggested a species capable of serious military resistance. He switched to another channel and found a program called Nature's Wonders, broadcasting live from somewhere called Alaska. The signal showed a human male standing in deep snow, talking to a camera about wildlife in the frozen wilderness. Zeril almost changed the channel again, but something made him pause. This human looked different from the others he had observed. Ben Rodriguez wore heavy clothing and carried survival equipment, but his movements suggested strength and confidence that seemed unusual for such a supposedly weak species. The alien communications officer had no idea that he was about to witness something that would change the course of an entire invasion, and possibly the fate of two civilizations. The discovery. "I'm here in Denali National Park," Ben said to the camera, tracking a grizzly bear family that emerged from hibernation last week. "These incredible animals can weigh up to 800 pounds and stand 9 feet tall on their hind legs." Communications Officer Zero leaned forward in his chair. 800 pounds? That was larger than most Zephyrian soldiers. Surely this human would maintain a safe distance from such a dangerous creature. Ben moved through the snow with surprising skill, following tracks that led deeper into the wilderness. His camera equipment looked heavy, but he carried it easily while navigating rough terrain that would challenge many alien species. "There," Ben whispered, pointing ahead. "Mother bear with 2 cubs. She's probably hungry after the long winter sleep. I need to be very careful here." Through the camera lens, Zero saw the massive brown creature. The bear stood on 4 legs, but even then it looked enormous. Its claws were visible even from a distance, each one longer than a Zephyrian finger. When it raised its head to sniff the air, Zero could see teeth designed for tearing flesh. "This is a perfect example of Earth's apex predators," Ben continued in a calm voice. "Grizzly bears have no natural enemies in this environment. They're incredibly strong, fast, and protective of their young." The bear suddenly turned toward Ben's position. It had caught his scent. The massive animal rose up on its hind legs, reaching its full 9-foot height, and let out a roar that made Zero jump in his chair. Any sane creature would retreat immediately. Zero expected Ben to run or call for help. Instead, the human documentary filmmaker stepped closer. "She's warning me to stay away from her cubs," Ben explained to his audience, his voice still steady. "This is her territory, and she's making that very clear." The bear dropped to all fours and began moving toward Ben. Each step shook the ground. Its eyes locked onto the human who had invaded its space. The cubs stayed behind their mother, but their presence only made her more aggressive. Ben set down his camera equipment carefully, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. "If I run now, she'll chase me. And bears can run 30 miles per hour, that's faster than any human. Running is not an option." Zero watched in horror as the 800-pound predator closed the distance. The bear's claws could tear through metal. Its jaws could crush bones. This human was about to be killed on live television. But Ben Rodriguez did something that made no sense to any logical being in the galaxy. Instead of retreating, he stepped forward to meet the charging bear. The collision was tremendous. The bear reared up and swung its massive paw at Ben's head. The human ducked under the blow and grabbed the bear's front legs. For a moment, man and beast were locked in a wrestling match that should have been instantly fatal for the human. Ben's feet slid in the snow as he struggled against the bear's enormous strength. The creature's claws raked across his heavy jacket, tearing the fabric but not reaching skin. Ben adjusted his grip and used the bear's own momentum to throw it off balance. The bear rolled in the snow and immediately charged again. This time Ben was ready. He sidestepped the attack and grabbed the bear around its massive neck. The two creatures rolled across the frozen ground, a tangle of fur, muscle, and human determination. Zero's jaw dropped open. His hands trembled as he reached for the emergency communication button. This changed everything. Everything they thought they knew about humans was wrong. Across the fleet, similar scenes were playing out as other communication officers discovered the broadcast. Word spread quickly through the command structure. Within minutes, Admiral Zanathi himself was staring at the impossible sight of a human wrestling a creature that outweighed him 4-1. The invasion plans suddenly seemed very different indeed. The revelation. "Admiral. You need to see this immediately." Communications Officer Zero's voice crackled with panic over the ship's intercom system. Admiral Zanathi rushed to the communications center, followed by Dr. Vosek and Commander Talvin. The bridge fell silent as they gathered around the main display showing the live broadcast from Earth. On the screen, Ben Rodriguez was locked in mortal combat with the grizzly bear. The human's strength was impossible to comprehend. As they watched, Ben managed to pin the massive creature's head to the ground while it thrashed wildly beneath him. "By the Ancient Ones," Commander Tulvin whispered. "How is he doing that?" Dr. Vosek's hands shook as he recalculated his assessment. "The bear must weigh 4 times what the human weighs, possibly more. This should be physically impossible." The fight continued for what felt like hours but was actually only minutes. Ben never showed fear, never backed down. When the bear tried to bite him, he calmly redirected its massive head. When it swiped with claws that could disembowel most creatures, he somehow avoided or deflected every blow. Finally, incredibly, the bear began to tire. Its movements became slower, less aggressive. Ben maintained his grip but didn't press his attack. Instead, he began speaking in soothing tones. "Easy, girl. Easy. I'm not here to hurt you or your cubs. I respect your territory." Gradually, impossibly, the bear began to calm down. Ben slowly released his hold and stepped back, his hands raised in a peaceful gesture. The bear watched him warily but didn't attack again. "Sometimes," Ben said quietly to his camera, "you have to stand your ground to earn respect. She knows I'm not a threat to her family now." The bear snorted once, looked at her cubs, and then lumbered away into the forest. Ben watched until she disappeared, then turned back to his camera with a slight smile. "And that, folks, is why we respect Earth's wildlife. They're not just animals, they're fellow survivors in one of the harshest environments on the planet." The transmission ended, but the silence in the Zephyrian command center stretched on for long moments. Admiral Zanathi finally found his voice. "Communications, find me more broadcasts like this one. I want to know everything about human physical capabilities." "Sir," Zero replied, his voice still shaking, "there are thousands of similar programs. Humans wrestling alligators, climbing vertical rock faces without equipment, surviving in deserts and Arctic conditions. They call it extreme sports and survival training." Dr. Vosek was frantically reviewing his data. "Admiral, I may have made a serious error in my assessment. If humans can physically overpower creatures of that size and strength, then our intelligence was completely wrong," Commander Tulvin finished grimly. "If a single human can defeat an 800-pound predator in hand-to-hand combat, what happens when millions of them coordinate against us?" Admiral Zanathi stared at the now empty screen. For the first time in his military career, he felt genuine uncertainty about a conquest. "Get me detailed analysis of human military capabilities. Real analysis, not the entertainment programs we've been studying. I want to know about their weapons, their tactics, their warrior culture." "Sir," another officer called out, "incoming data from our deep scan sensors. The humans have been tracking our fleet for the past 18 hours. They know we're here." The admiral's blood turned cold. If the humans knew about the invasion fleet and hadn't attempted to surrender or evacuate, it meant only one thing: they were preparing to fight against a species that could wrestle bears and call it a nature documentary. "Cancel the Category C protocols," Zanathi ordered quietly. "And get me a direct communication link to Earth. We need to talk." The conclusion. The next 12 hours changed everything. As Zephyrian intelligence officers dug deeper into human broadcasts, they uncovered a terrifying truth. The peaceful cooking shows and romantic comedies were just the surface layer of human entertainment. Beneath that lay a vast library of content showcasing human physical and mental capabilities that defied everything they thought they knew about the species. Videos of humans lifting weights that would crush most aliens. Athletes performing feats of endurance that would kill Zephyrian soldiers. Mixed martial arts competitions where humans voluntarily fought each other for sport, displaying combat skills that rivaled their own elite warriors. Most disturbing of all were the historical documentaries. Humans didn't just wrestle bears for entertainment, they had spent their entire evolutionary history fighting for survival against creatures, environments, and each other in ways that would break most civilized species. Admiral Xanathi sat in his command chair, reviewing report after report. Each one painted the same picture: humanity wasn't weak. They were apex predators who had disguised their nature behind a veneer of civilization. "Admiral," Commander Talvin reported, "our communications with Earth have been established. They're willing to talk, but their terms are unusual." "Explain." "They want to meet on neutral ground. One representative from each side, no weapons, no backup. They suggested the humans' moon as a meeting location." Dr. Vosek looked up from his data pad. "Sir, based on what we've learned, sending anyone to meet with a human representative could be suicide. If they can overpower 800-pound predators, what could they do to one of us?" Xanathi considered this. Standard military doctrine suggested overwhelming force was the answer to any threat. But everything about this situation had already proven that standard doctrine didn't apply to humans. "Prepare a diplomatic shuttle," he decided. "I'll go myself." "Sir." Commander Talvin protested. "That's far too dangerous." "Is it more dangerous than invading a planet full of creatures who wrestle bears for fun?" Xanathi asked quietly. "We came here expecting easy conquest. Instead, we've discovered a species that might be more dangerous than us. The only question now is whether we can find a way to coexist." 3 days later, Admiral Xanathi found himself face-to-face with Dr. Lisa Campbell in a prefabricated meeting room on Luna Base. The human looked small and fragile, exactly as his intelligence reports had described. But now he knew better than to trust appearances. "Admiral," Dr. Campbell said calmly, "I assume you've reconsidered your invasion plans?" "How did you know?" he asked. She smiled, an expression that no longer seemed harmless to Xanathi. "We've been monitoring your communications. We know you've been studying our broadcasts more carefully. Ben Rodriguez's bear wrestling was educational, I hope. You knew we were watching. We've known about your fleet since you entered our solar system. We've been preparing appropriate, educational materials, for your review. Ben's documentary was just one example of what you might face if you decided to proceed with hostile intentions." Xanathi realized they had been manipulated from the beginning. The humans hadn't been caught off guard, they had been strategically revealing their capabilities. "What do you want?" he asked. "Trade. Cultural exchange. Peaceful coexistence. We're not interested in joining your empire, but we're not opposed to joining your community. Humans have always been better at cooperation than conquest, when given the choice." Xanathi looked at the small human woman and realized she was probably more dangerous than any warrior he had ever faced. Not because of her physical strength, but because of her intelligence and her species' apparent ability to turn any situation to their advantage. "I'll need to discuss this with the Collective Council," he said. "Of course," Dr. Campbell replied. "Take all the time you need. Just remember, we'll be watching your broadcasts too, now. We're very curious about your civilization." 6 months later, the Zephyrian Collective signed their first mutual defense and trade agreement with a species they had originally intended to conquer. Earth became not the 48th world in their empire, but their first true ally. Admiral Xanathi often wondered what would have happened if communications officer Zeril had changed the channel instead of watching Ben Rodriguez wrestle that bear. The galaxy would certainly be a very different place. In his final report to the Collective Council, he wrote, "Recommendation for future first contact protocols: never assume a species is weak simply because they appear civilized. The most dangerous predators are often the ones who have learned to control their predatory instincts rather than abandon them." And on Earth, Ben Rodriguez continued making nature documentaries, completely unaware that his wrestling match with a grizzly bear had prevented an alien invasion and changed the course of galactic history. He probably would have been amused to know that his show had become required viewing at the Zephyrian Military Academy, where it was used to teach future officers about the dangers of underestimating potential adversaries. The end.